All right, so we're back and we're going to talk about all these delivery meal kits. And I have a person that is a good colleague of mine. In fact, she lives in Boston. But you know something? It's one of those situations where we live right near each other, but we only visit each other when we're in Europe. It's the weirdest thing in the whole wide world. So we go to this conference every year, and that's the only time we ever see each other. I think that's the funniest thing in the whole wide world. But anyway, it's Liz Weiss. She is a cookbook author and registered dietitian, food blogger, communicator. Really, I've been doing this for a while, but she looks like she's 20. She, as I mentioned, is Boston based here, and she's the author of a few cookbooks, which is exciting. The Mom's Guide to Meal Makeover, a really cute one, this whimsical color cook and eat, which I love. And she's got a new one out, the GLP-1 Kitchen, which we will talk about later on in this episode. But Liz, hey, thank you for meeting me sort of in Boston here.
Good to be here. I was going to have my new cookbook right here in front of me to show you, but of course it's in the other room, so
Right.
maybe you'll indulge me later and let me run out and grab it.
We're gonna do better than that. When we post this, we're gonna put this on the Spot on Facebook page. And we're gonna put a link to where you can even order it. So the holidays are coming, my dear, and we all need something. We all need something great. Okay, so listen. These meal kits are crazy. I read a latest statistic that we're talking about a $26 billion industry that is projected to go up to 64 billion by 2030. I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about these. And you wrote a wonderful article in today's Dietitian, which we will also put up about these meals. But can you educate us? So, give us an overview of what are these, delivery meal kits?
Sure. So, there's really two things going on. The first is the meal kit, where you actually receive all the ingredients and the recipes, and you at home will prepare that recipe
Hmm.
or those recipes. And then there's also ready to eat meals that are delivered. So, but let's talk about the kits just for a minute. So, some of the companies that you might have heard of, the biggies, HelloFresh,
Hmm.
Blue Apron.
Hmm.
Another one, I'm looking at my notes because there's so many, Purple Carrot, Sunbasket. So those are the kits. And then the ready to eat meals that get delivered to your door,
Hmm.
Cook Unity, Feast, and Fettle. Those are two biggies. And so the industry is huge. It's growing. It's also niching down. I was reading that for people taking GLP-1 weight loss meds, which of
Hmm.
course I'm interested in, having just written the cookbook, people that take those medications often have a diminished appetite.
Hmm.
Post injection, they might have one or two low energy days. They don't want to cook. So a lot of these meal delivery companies are now delivering meals to those folks. So they are portioned appropriately, perhaps a bit smaller. They are nutrient dense. Protein's a biggie. So we're seeing that niching down in the market. And then, of course, with the meal delivery kits, some are more plant-based or veggie forward, some are more family focused. So kind of the world is your oyster when it comes to meal kits.
Liz, we're sort of in the same age group. I think I'm younger, but whatever. And you're at the situation where you may have an older parent. And I remember doing this, saying, ordering these kinds of meals, like for an older parent. So they're popular among baby boomers. But I also read that they're very popular among Gen Zs and millennials. And any insight?
Well, when it comes to that population, they are very adventurous. They dine out a lot. So they're curious, right? And they've tried all these world flavors. And also, they like to kind of hang out and cook together. It's just a social thing. When I was young in my 20s, we would not have gotten together with friends and said, come on over, let's cook, let's have a dinner party. That's more of a thing nowadays. So a meal kit would be like right in the sweet spot for that age group. They can play. I mean, who does not love an unboxing? I mean, let's get real, right? Thanks to social media, you get this box, you unbox it. It's like, oh my gosh, look at all this and the beautiful recipes. And then you can take photos and share on Instagram. I mean, it's a thing, Joan, right? It all makes sense.
Listen, when that UPS truck comes in my driveway, I'm like, it's my birthday every day. And you're right. When you open that box, you're like, oh, isn't this great? Even though you just paid for it, whatever. Listen. Are they healthier than, cooking or dining out? What do you think?
Well, I guess that's really kind of relative because it depends where you're dining out. But if you think about it, you go to a restaurant, you don't know what's going on in the kitchen. How much salt are they adding? How much fat? What kind of portion will await you, when that recipe, when that dinner arrives? Whereas with a meal kit, you have not as much control as if you're cooking from scratch, but you've got control. So you don't have to add all the salt. You don't have to add all the fat.
Right.
You can look at the veg and say, wow, I love this amount of vegetables, but I'm going to open my freezer and grab a few more and throw that in. So they can be healthier. Now, there is research. There was actually an interesting study that I unearthed. I'll send it to you. It was an Australian study, and they looked at 9 different delivery kit companies
Mm,
to evaluate, I think it was about a dozen recipes. And they wanted to know, are they healthier? Are they healthy? Not healthier,
mhm,
are they just healthy? And they
mhm.
found that on average, they had 700 calories each. They were too high in sodium and too high in fat, according to the researchers. But again, you've got some control in your home kitchen, so you can modify that. And then the veggies. This was like, I know you wanted to ask me about veggies because, we are dietitians, but the veggies, according to that research, they found that on average, 2.5 servings of vegetables per recipe, which is
Okay.
amazing. So if you're
Yes.
trying to get, yourself to eat more veggies, or you're a mom or a dad or a parent and you want your kids to eat more veggies, the meal kits are a great little entry point for that. They're veggie forward. Of course, you want to make sure that when you're picking and choosing all the cool recipes they have for you to pick from, that you're picking those or choosing those that are plant forward. They're made with chickpeas, they're made with lots of vegetables. So it doesn't just have to be like your meat and potatoes, but make sure that what you're choosing has a lot of veggies too.
That's interesting, Liz, because, we know from the research that when you dine out, your saturated fat, your added sugar, and your sodium goes up. And then when you cook at home, those go down, but vegetables go up. So this is sort of like right in between the two, where, it may have more sodium than and fat than home cooked, but you could adjust this and it may still give you more vegetables than dine out. So it's like what you're saying, is that sweet spot of where it could be beneficial and you can
Hmm.
manipulate it a little bit. That's
Right,
kind of that's
right.
kind of exciting. Is it really a time saver? So if you have to chop everything up, or what? What do you think?
Okay. So I did subscribe to Blue Apron for a while and HelloFresh. So I'm going to tell you from my personal insider experience. You get these meal kits and things are portioned out for you. So the vinegar is in a little container.
Right.
You're getting half a bunch of kale because that's what the recipe called for, not the full bunch, but the half a bunch. And it's washed, it's trimmed to some degree. You're still going to have to chop the carrot. You're still going to have to chop up the kale. So there's lots of little prep steps involved. And then there's also lots of pots and pans because they're going to have you
Mm,
cook the starch. They're going to have you cook the veg. They're going to have you cook the protein. So when I was doing these different services, I remember my husband complaining. Well, he was happy because the food tasted great and it was very interesting, new kinds of recipes. But there was a lot of dirty dishes. So don't kid yourself. Yes,
right.
it's pre-portioned, but you're still having to chop the carrot. Maybe you don't have to peel it. You don't have to buy a whole bunch and then have it sit in the fridge and you're only using the 2 carrots in the month, or the week. But it's not prep free. But if you have friends over or roommates or you have kids, teenagers, you can get everybody into the kitchen to help you because it's a little sexier, it's a little more exciting. And so,
Right.
yeah, bring people in to help.
Well, I would imagine that what you said is good. Like you don't get the whole head of kale because how many times, Liz, we all know this, the recipe that you're making at home asks for kale. You end up buying the whole head and using a quarter of it, and then we know where that goes. That goes into the refrigerator. I call that the produce bin or the produce graveyard. We'll never see that again. But what's good about this then, it could be reduced food waste because then they're giving somebody else the other part of that kale.
100%. 100% it reduces food waste, which is such a huge bonus. So let me just back up and say, because we talked about the unboxing, that the
Hmm.
packaging is a little overwhelming. You're going to get a
Hmm.
lot of packaging and you're going to think, my gosh, this is a disaster for the environment. But University of Michigan actually did some research on this. And it's early research. I mean, more needs to be done, but they found that the meal kits were, let's see, their carbon footprint was 33% lower than if you were to go to the grocery store, buy the individual ingredients, and then bring it home and cook at home. And that's because there is less food waste that we just talked about, and the transportation and the delivery and the sort of the logistics of that is more streamlined with a meal kit. So yeah, less carbon footprint, which is great, but you do have a lot to deal with the trash and the recycling. So it's not a perfect scenario, but I think the biggest bonus is the food waste piece because
Right.
you're getting the 2 carrots, you're getting the half a cabbage, you're not getting, sometimes you go to the grocery store and that head of cabbage is like bigger than a basketball, and you're like,
Right.
but I only needed 3 cups,
Yeah.
chopped.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with the rest of this? So that can be a huge bonus.
Right. Okay. So now in these, inflationary times, which is like crazy going food shopping, I feel like I'm going food shopping in Bloomingdale's because the prices are so cuckoo.
Yes.
I mean, it's my goodness. Um, is it cheaper? You think are they cheaper per serving? What do you think versus cooking yourself versus takeout versus restaurant? What are you thinking?
It's hard to really quantify because when you delve into these different services, it's hard to get the exact price because they always have deals. Sign
Hmm.
up and you'll get this free and this discount and that discount. So I'm not a good math person. I graduated kindergarten math, and that's kind of where it ended for me, Joan. I'm not going to lie. But on average, a meal is anywhere between like $9 and $13 when you're talking about the meal kits. So let's say you have a family of four and you want 4 meals a week. So that is 16. I did that math for you. That's 16 meals in the week. It's about $150, and then shipping may or may not be extra.
Hmm.
If you're getting a meal, ready to eat meal delivered to your door, 16 of those, that could be 200. So it's obviously going to be more because it's
Hmm.
prepped and all that work's done for you. But the meal kits can be pretty reasonable. But yeah,
Right.
it's hard to really compare because where are you dining out? What grocery store are you going to? Trader Joe's, Market Basket, Kroger, so it's hard to do an exact comparison.
And takeout is not inexpensive. I
Mm-mm.
mean, you get takeout for a family of four. That is really expensive. And if you go to like a quick serve eatery, then the drinks go on top of it, the dessert comes. So, I'm not sure. That's very interesting. It may not be, it may be cheaper, may not be cheaper. And, who knows? Depending on where you're going and where you're going to eat
Yeah,
out.
I think it's probably fairly comparable. And, there's that whole sort of quality of life thing. If you're home and you've got kids and you're all cooking together and you're eating out together, eating together at the table, there's less distraction. That's like a kind of a winning strategy for a successful family meal.
Right. Absolutely. And we all know the benefits of family meals. So you wrote this article, very interesting. It was called Ditch the Home Delivery Meal Kits, because your whole emphasis, which I loved, was you can sort of make your own kit at home, or you can make fast dinner options that, don't need a lot of slicing and dicing. So let's go through some of these. So what were some of your suggestions in this article about how to throw together a healthy meal, without much, time preparation?
Yeah. So when people do meal planning, they often look in their fridge and they often look in their pantry, like dry goods. They forget to look in their freezer. So the
Hmm.
focus of the article was to really use your freezer as your own home meal delivery kit. And that's because it's so underutilized that we really need to get consumers kind of excited about the freezer. So in that freezer, you can stock it with bags of um, frozen broccoli florets and carrots and corn and edamame and then frozen fruits and then frozen protein, shrimp, chicken, frozen grain. I love the frozen rice that I get, the little
Hmm.
pouches of it. Such a time saver. So if you have a freezer that is well stocked, you can literally start picking and choosing ingredients and then mix and match them with what's in your fridge and your pantry. So you can use frozen broccoli florets with frozen peeled and deveined shrimp. Hello, so easy. And saute those together, add some teriyaki sauce, maybe thicken it with a little cornstarch, cook up a bag of that frozen rice, and now you have this amazing, delicious, simple dinner. You could throw some frozen edamame in as well. So that's just one example. You could grab a bag of frozen cheese ravioli, Layer
Mm,
that ravioli in a casserole dish with frozen spinach, which I always like to thaw first and kind of squeeze
mhm,
dry,
mhm.
some marinara sauce out of your pantry, some shredded maybe mozzarella cheese out of the refrigerator, a little grated parm. Now you have kind of a lasagna, if you will. Just
Mhm.
throw it in the oven. It's bubbly, it's cheesy, it's gooey, it's yummy. Kids come home from school, you come home from work, make a smoothie. OJ out of the fridge, some soy milk. I'm a big soy milk fan. Some frozen fruit, maybe mango out of the freezer, a little frozen spinach, go for the green smoothie, and boom, now you have this healthy and delicious smoothie that was literally like you're shopping your kitchen, but lean into that freezer because to me,
Right.
that is like the magic.
So, first of all, it sounds like when you're doing that sauteing with the shrimp, and it's interesting nowadays, Liz. When we were growing up, shrimp was like, oh, we can't afford shrimp. Shrimp is so expensive. And now shrimp is very affordable compared to other sources of animal protein, which I think is really interesting. Um, but when you did that saute, microwave, throw together, I'm counting the pots, and there really wasn't a lot of pots involved in that.
No, there's like a bowl here and there. There's a pan. I mean, you can go from freezer to pan. That shrimp, I always like to thaw it first, but you don't really technically have to. But shrimp I'll thaw first. But the broccoli florets, you can
Right,
throw them in frozen.
right.
Carrots, edamame, throw them in frozen. Let it go. I actually last night I took frozen broccoli florets and I tossed them with olive oil, added some salt and pepper, and I baked them on a baking sheet
Mm,
and I toss them every 10 minutes and they are caramelized. They're delicious. You would not know it came from frozen right
right.
to the oven.
Right. And getting back to food waste, somebody has already sliced and diced those broccoli florets. And what happened at the plant where this was occurring, they've taken the unedible parts. And companies are getting savvy about this, and they're either recycling it into something else
Mhm.
or putting it composing or feeding it to animals and everything. So it's helping with food waste because they're dealing it from their end so that you don't have to deal it from your end.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, it's amazing. Like if you look at Refed's research, they found that only when it comes to food waste, I think produce is something like 40% of all produce goes uneaten or to waste, and only 2.3% of frozen foods. So
right,
frozen foods, you only use what you need. It's
right,
nature's pause button. It locks in all those nutrients. In fact, frozen can even be higher in vitamin C and vitamin E when you look at fruits and veggies compared to, frozen versus what's
right.
in your fridge. And so nutritionally, they're convenient, less food waste, and so affordable. And they're
Yeah.
always in season.
What you said about that ravioli lasagna, which I have made multiple times, just because it's almost much easier to put together than regular lasagna. But I'll make a batch. I'm big on cook once, eat twice,
Mhm.
and so you can freeze that, and then next week you pull that baby out of the freezer, and that becomes the meal, and it's already prepped.
That's right. So it's like your meal delivery. You're ready to eat
Right.
meal delivery. You like, oh, open the freezer. And I will say, when you're freezing leftovers, make sure you cool them first and
Mm-hmm.
then freeze them. I like to use those Ziploc bags because you can label them. They lie flat. You can squeeze the air out. You want to freeze food when it's as flat as possible and you want to freeze it as quickly as possible. And that way it retains its quality. It's never like a food safety issue with frozen food. It's always a quality issue.
Mm-hmm.
When you freeze food or that company freezes, the shrimp or whatever other product you're buying, any bacteria that could be in that product, it goes dormant. It does not grow. Like, when we leave food on the counter, bacteria can grow. It doesn't grow in your freezer. And then when you take it out, you thaw it properly and then you cook it. And so it's a
See, right.
safe, affordable, sustainable way to eat.
Just to repeat, thaw it in the refrigerator, not on the counter.
You would
That's
thaw
right,
it in the fridge, or you
refrigerator,
could
right?
thaw it in a bowl of cold water, change the
Hmm.
water every 30 minutes, and make sure it's in a sealed up bag so no water is getting into your food.
Now, Liz, on your website, and again, we're going to put a link to your website on the Spot on Facebook page. You have a lot of like family recipes that are quick and easy, right?
I do. Family was always my focus. And as I got a little older, Joan, not that I have to divulge my exact age, I went more into the longevity space. So, and it's funny because a lot of the people that followed me from the early days when I was blogging under the Meal Makeover Moms brand, or platform, a lot of those moms who had young kids at the time, and I had young kids at the time, we've all grown up together and they're still following me. And now, of course, we're like, oh, how do I age backwards now? We're all
Yeah.
looking for ways to age with vitality and feel our best.
Yeah, yeah, great. That's super. So we again, we'll put a link there, and you can see all her wonderful recipes. Because I can remember Dr. Bill Castelli. He was a cardiologist that was head of the Framingham Heart Study here,
Yes.
and he said something. Oh, this is back, I don't know, maybe in the 80s. He said something like, "All you need to do to keep Americans healthy is give them 10 healthy recipes." That's all you have to do because
Mm.
they eat the same recipes over and over again. So go to Liz's website and get your 10 favorite recipes, and then you go and you can freeze your meals and have it going on there. Before I let you go, I want to know more. I want you to tell our listeners and viewers more about this GLP-1 cookbook. And, we started the episode with you talking about that if there's a lot of interesting things that going about these medications. They are working wonders for some people, but there are some problems initially in that they lost the appetite so much that they may not be eating
Mhm.
enough food, maybe not getting enough nutrients. So just quickly, can you summarize what does this cookbook do? Because again, I think we know everybody knows at least one person on GLP-1s. So where a cookbook like this could really be beneficial. So tell us a little about
Yeah.
that.
So I wrote the book with dietitians Roseanne Rust and Sunoy Escobar. So the three of us wrote the book. It's called the GLP-1 Kitchen, and it has 50 protein and fiber-rich recipes. We know that when people are prescribed GLP-1 weight loss medications, they are rarely referred to a registered dietitian. So they're often on their own. They're on their own, and they're dealing with side effects like diminished appetite, nausea, and constipation, and low energy. After that injection day, they might not feel their best. So appetite's down, energy's down, but wow, I'm losing weight rapidly. I've got to nourish my body. I don't want to lose muscle. That's what you say to yourself. So what do? I eat protein, but you can't just eat protein. You want to eat protein, fiber to keep things moving through the GI tract. You want to stay hydrated and you want nutrient density. We say in
Mm-hmm.
the book, every bite should count towards great nutrition. So the recipes are smoothies because you can pack a lot of great nutrition into a smoothie,
Mm-hmm.
mini meals, so
Mm.
portion nicely, and then snacks. One of my favorite recipes in the book is a last minute black bean soup
Mm.
because it's like a meal kit. You open your pantry and you pull out the can of black beans. You've got some salsa. You add some frozen corn kernels. And then you've got this yummy soup with some spices, not too spiced, just
Mm-hmm.
right, just enough to kind of give you a hint of great flavor. And then you can top it with shredded cheese, diced
Mm-hmm.
avocado, a little bit of Greek yogurt or sour cream. It's kind of a mix and match, if you will. You could serve it with some corn chips on the side. You can batch cook so you can freeze leftovers and have them later when you just don't feel like cooking. So that's the kind of recipes that we offer in the book, where we lean into pantry ingredients, we lean into freezer ingredients and fridge staples. We make it easy and we keep those portions not too big so people don't feel overwhelmed. And so it really is like your substitute for seeing a dietitian. Of course, there's never a substitute for that, but
Right.
it kind of fills in the blanks for people who might feel like lost and not sure how to eat, how to get that protein and nutrient density onto the table.
Right. Terrific. Terrific. I'm so excited about this. The GLP-1 Kitchen, right? That's the name of it. It's on, you can get it from Amazon, where else? Anything.
Yep, you could get it on Amazon. We also offer a download. So if you would
Oh.
prefer a PDF, and I sent you a link to that,
Mm-hmm.
and I can resend it to you, but
Mm-hmm.
people can download it to their desktop, and it's less expensive that way than if you buy it on Amazon. But it's an affordable book, and it's worth it, and you're going to love it.
Okay, so how do they get that PDF?
I will send you a link to it.
Okay. Oh, and I'll put it in the Facebook page.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
fab.
yeah.
My
You
goodness.
can
Oh,
link to I'll give you the link to Amazon. I'll give you the
right.
link to the PDF,
Okay.
and folks can find it that way.
Terrific. Thank you so, so much. Liz Weiss, she is she's in the kitchen, out of the kitchen doing a lot of many things, but boy, that was really interesting information. And everybody should take a peek at her new cookbook. So Liz, thank you again for coming on Spot On.
Thanks, Joan. It was good to be here finally.
Okay.